podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.
PNR.
Blueberry.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
The Big G, Tokyo Town, StompDown.
Welcome to another episode of the Big G Tokyo Town StompDown here on Subject Cinema this month. We're so excited and so happy you're joining us. I'm Kim Brown.
I'm TC Kirkham, also from eCinemaOne.com and Kaiju Corner, Kim's great all kaiju show on Patreon.
Yay.
It is May 29th, and we are just 2 days away from the release of the sequel to the movie we're about to talk about, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, from Legendary Entertainment, starring Millie Bobby Brown, Kyle Chandler, Vera Farmiga, Ken Watanabe, David Strathairn, and Sally Hawkins. Finally figured out who she was. She's Watanabe's assistant. This is like, today we're going to talk about the first movie in this series. Mm-hmm. It's actually the 30th overall Godzilla film, the second to be produced by a Hollywood studio, the first good one to be produced by a Hollywood studio.
You are not wrong.
And an all-star cast that includes Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ken Watanabe, Elizabeth Olsen, Juliette Binoche, Sally Hawkins, David Strathairn, and Bryan Cranston in a cameo, pretty much, although he is the main focus of the trailer, which kind of, because Bryan was hot in Breaking Bad at the time, and people were like, he's gone within 5-10 minutes of the movie. It's like, yep, okay.
Yep.
So anyway, this was released in 2014 by Legendary and came out from which other studio? I don't remember. It is
Legendary and Warner Brothers and Toho.
And, well, Toho is aware of it and did give their blessing to it. Mm-hmm. And they had not made a movie since 2004's Final Wars.
Yep.
So this was the first Godzilla in a decade, the longest period we'd seen for a while since Godzilla 1985.
Yep.
So, okay. You love this film? Have at it. We both love this film.
Okay.
Have at it.
Most of the opening credits tell you the original, they tell you the story of Godzilla without actually telling you anything, because there's a lot of it that's redacted in the opening credits.
They do, but they also put their own unusual and unexpected spin on it.
Yeah. 1954, something woke up in the waters off of Japan. Something large. Something angry. And it was determined that this was some ancient creature, a throwback to a long-forgotten time, that was somehow changed and brought back to life, or mutated, or however you want to word it, by man's arrogance and man's, constant way of trying to find new and exciting ways to kill each other. We wound up waking something up, and it didn't want to be woken up. And it was lured to an island, and attempts were made to kill it with a nuclear bomb.
Specifically, it was lured to Bikini Atoll.
Yeah.
Everybody remember what Bikini Atoll was?
Yeah.
Good, you've done your history work.
With a nuclear bomb. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. We go to 1999, and we have some scientists that work for an organization called Monarch. One of the scientists is named Ishiro Serizawa, and his associate, a scientist, Vivian Graham, who find a gigantic skeleton that was unearthed. There was a uranium mine being, created and dug in the ground and all that stuff like that. And this was in the Philippines, and there was this big cave-in, and they found this enormous skeleton in the mine. They also found these 2 spores in the mine. One of them was dormant, and the other one was empty. with a trail from the open one that led out of the cave where the spores were found, led out into the ocean. So, in Japan, a nuclear power plant, the Janjira nuclear power plant, is going through what seems to be some sort of an earthquake or some kind of seismic, everything's shaking and stuff's going wrong very quickly. And a man that works there, his name is Joe Brody, he has some technicians go into the reactor to try and fix everything before we wind up with another Chernobyl, because those of us who remember that was an extremely bad thing. One of the technicians is Joe's own wife. Her name is Sandra. And there is another shaking of the ground, and it winds up causing a reactor breach. And Sandra and the other the other technicians, they try and run out, but they can't make it in time, and Joe has to make the incredibly heartbreaking decision of either shutting the door and leaving his wife and the other technicians to die a terrible death, or open the door, try and get them out, and possibly condemn him and a bunch of other people, and who knows how many other people, to the oncoming flood of radiation. He makes a difficult choice, and the plant winds up collapsing.
Heck of a birthday present, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because we found out before they went to work that this was Joe's birthday. And their son had been preparing a little birthday bash for Dad, even though Dad was usually too busy to pay attention.
Yep, their son Ford. So we go forward 15 years, and Ford is now a member of the U.S. Navy. He's a bomb disposal officer. People that have to have really strong nerves, and I know I couldn't do that job. And he is heading back after a tour of, duty, serving his country. He's going to head back to San Francisco, where his wife is, and his son. His wife's name is Ellie, and his son's name is Sam. He has to head for Japan. He's unfortunately not able to get to San Francisco right away. He is told to go to Japan because his dad has been arrested. His dad was arrested trying to get into the Janjira zone, which has been under quarantine since the reactor went haywire 15 years ago, because, as we all know, you mess around with radiation, and then all of a sudden nobody can go near the place for, 2 or 3 generations. Although I have heard people are starting to leak back into Chernobyl. People are actually starting to encroach on that area, which I'm like,
they're rebuilding, actually.
That's not safe. Joe wants to find out what actually caused the meltdown, because he's of the opinion that it was more than just a random earthquake. And it's very obvious Joe's relationship with his son is strained, but they still obviously love each other very much. And he manages to talk Ford into going with him back to the house that they lived in to get some data that they had in the house. Because, when they told people to bug out of this place, they bugged out. People just grabbed what they could and ran. It's like that island in Japan where they filmed part of, which Bond movie did they film there?
Skyfall.
Yeah, that one island where they abandoned it in a day or whatever, 2 days.
I think that was off China, wasn't it? Not Japan. I'm not sure which one.
No, I think it's Japan.
Okay.
I'm not sure though. But like I said, when people had to bug out, they bugged out. So all this stuff was still left behind. So they go into this zone, which is supposed to be all super crazy contaminated, and guess what? It isn't. The government's lying to their people. What? And
hey, it isn't our government either. It's the Japanese government.
Yeah. Well, the government is lying to their people. That's kind of a trope that's all over the world, unfortunately. Yeah. So they get the data, but they wind up getting caught, and they're taken to this place that's actually been built inside the ruined nuclear plant. It turns out that this place has the one spore that they found earlier on, in the cave-in and all that in the Philippines. Now it's grown into this big glowing cocoon kind of looking thing that looks really friggin' ominous. And it's been fed off of the plant's, the nuclear power plant's energy and the reactors and all that for the past 15 years. And it's been sending out these waves of electromagnetic energy, these pulses that have been going on for, quite a long time. And the thing is, as it turns out, what's in this thing decides to make its debut. And anybody who thought this was going to be some pretty butterfly or something like that were sorely disappointed when what comes out of this thing is this enormous, scary-ass looking monster that looks like, picture the biggest, meanest bug you've ever seen in your life. Now, imagine that bug's about the size of the Chrysler building. Well, am I wrong?
No, you're not.
And it's like an insect had sex with a demon, and this is what came out.
Okay.
And it, hatches and wrecks the joint and flies off because it's got wings, because of course it does. Joe winds up being badly injured and winds up dying as all the Breaking Bad fans sit there and go, WTF, we thought he was the star of this movie. And, well, they did.
They did.
And Ford, who has by now teamed up with Professor Sarazawa and Professor Graham, they're all taken to the USS Saratoga. And, of course, this incident...
Not wanting to trigger a panic, though.
Right.
We should point that out.
The incident is, people can't hide the fact that something happened, but everyone is told that what happened was an earthquake.
There was an earthquake in Peru the other day, an 8.0.
We shouldn't do that.
We shouldn't.
That's
anyway.
reality. That's reality. That's not. So, in other words, the government lied to the people again.
Well, this was for panic reasons.
They
need time to figure out what's going on before they can warn the people. Fair enough? All right, let's move on.
We're not going to agree on this. So anyway, the Professor Sarazawa and Professor Graham join up with a task force sent by the U.S. Navy that is led by Admiral Stenz to find out what this creature is. The creature has been referred to as a MUTO, which is all in capital letters, which stands for Massive Unidentified Terrestrial Organism. Why not? So, as it turns out, that Sarazawa and the professors both reveal to Ford about this exploration that was done back in 1954 that awoke this creature called Godzilla. And that all of those nuclear tests that they did in the 50s that were supposed to be, trying to, get the best bomb we could so we can fight the commies and all that other crap, yeah, that's bull. That was all done to try and kill this one animal. And none of it worked. And that's when Monarch was created, Project Monarch, which these people know that Godzilla's out there. And that not only is Godzilla out there, there's other things out there. Big, scary, nasty things that look at us as hors d'oeuvres.
Well, no, not all of them would. We know that.
Well,
and that'll be evident Friday.
Yeah,
anyway.
Not all of them are big, scary, nasty things that look at us as hors d'oeuvres, but the ones that aren't big, scary, nasty things that look at us as hors d'oeuvres are still big, scary things that would probably knock over a building and be like, oops, my bad, sorry.
Yeah.
And, crush an
enough,
entire, crush like 500 people or whatever. They may not mean to. But
okay, fair enough. Let's move on.
So, in other words, more lies. More lies and more cover-ups.
Honey, you're sounding like freaking Alex Jones. Will you stop it?
You take
I won't
that
take that back as long as you continue to do this conspiracy stuff. You stop that. It's government trying to avert a worldwide panic. Lies, white lies in this case, in the interest of the public, are not a bad thing as long as they can get a handle on it.
Which they didn't.
Not yet, but they are. They do make it public before long.
Well, yeah, they have to.
Okay.
Because of what happens in the movie.
And I do. You're not as bad as Alex Jones.
Thank you.
You're only about as bad as the guy in Weird Al's foil video.
Look, I acknowledge that there's things out there that we don't know about. I acknowledge there's stuff out there that they don't tell us. You know? I acknowledge it, and that's... Anyway, moving on. I mean, you want to compare me to somebody. Do you compare me to somebody else that's not a fistful of a-holes? Anyway, so they also... They let Ford know that in 1999, this creature had traveled from the Philippine mine, which we knew about, to Janjira and caused the whole catastrophe that wound up killing Ford's mother. And Ford tells them what his father had been working on, that he had been monitoring the echolocation, which is what the creature was sending out, these pulses, and they think that it was trying to communicate with another monster. And they think that the monster that it was trying to communicate with was Godzilla. The Muto winds up attacking a Russian sub, which thankfully we don't get blamed for a change, and winds up plopping it down in Hawaii so it can open up the sub and eat the nuclear stuff that's in the sub that makes it go. Godzilla winds up showing up in Hawaii, which, because it's on an island, that obviously causes problems, like a giant-ass tsunami. And Godzilla winds up fighting with the Muto, so that throws the whole, the Muto was sending out these pulses to Godzilla out of the water, I would think. And they wind up having a fight, but the Muto escapes. So Serizawa comes to the conclusion that if the Muto wasn't communicating with Godzilla, obviously that means it was communicating with another being, and they have to try and find out who or what it is. As it turns out, the military's all like, we actually kind of know something about that, because the other spore is located in a nuclear waste depository, which is located in Nevada, in this place in what's called Yucca Mountain, which is, I don't know if that's a mountain range or what, but I'm like, why didn't you?
Yucca Mountain is a real location, and it's where the American nuclear waste is stored.
Mm-hmm.
It's underground by miles.
Right. Why the hell they didn't just take a bunch of blowtorches and just go, okay, let's roast this sucker? I don't know, but they didn't. So the government, the military...
Science!
Yeah, the military's all like, yeah, about that. So as it turns out, the other egg, this other, I don't know how you'd word it, pod actually had a Muto in it as well. And that's the one that's in Vegas. And as it turns out, it's bigger than the first Muto, but it doesn't have wings. And it winds up wrecking Las Vegas. Punches a big hole through the side of Yucca Mountain and heads off to Vegas, and not to see Wayne Newton.
This is when the government has to tell the public the
truth.
It's
like, oh, hey, folks, by the way, we've been hiding this hell beast in the country. And
they're not hiding it. They're protecting Americans from panicking.
Well, we had this thing, and now we don't anymore. Whoops. And... as it turns out, the scientists, because they're scientists and that's their job, they figure out through just simple biology that the larger Muto, the one that doesn't have wings, is a female. So that obviously means that the one with the wings is a male, because that's like a lot of biology and stuff like that. When you see like insects and things like that, the female is usually larger than the male.
Right.
Because she has to,
There's actually a song from the 90s that said the female of the species is more deadlier than the male, which if you ever go back and hear that...
I think Kipling said that first.
Yeah, that's where they got it from. Yeah.
So...
or whoever said it. I don't know if it was Kipling or not. But.
Anyway. So obviously, the thing is... this is the part that makes everybody's blood run cold when they realize that those pulses that the male was sending out, that's a mating call. So now we've got the male Muto and the female Muto, and now they both know each other exists. Holy beep, this is bad.
I hope she's wearing her come F me boots.
I don't think they make them in that size.
Oh, that's too bad.
So the scientists are all like, the military's all like, well, we need to use, the nukes. And the scientists are all like, no, we don't. What are you kidding? But the military's all like the usual thing, bomb the hell out of stuff. And
although, can I also interject something here?
Yes.
Admiral Stenz is the most intelligent military man I've seen in any of these films.
Yes, he is
actually listening. I mean, he is following orders, but he is listening to Serizawa.
He's a very sympathetic...
That is why they are both figuring in the new movie. Anyway.
Yes. He is a very sympathetic character. He's not portrayed as as they are usually in these films, as, a bullheaded hawk that's using a missile to compensate for something. I didn't finish that.
While chomping on his unlit cigar.
I didn't finish that.
I know.
So, anyway.
Didn't have to.
So,
move on.
Their idea is to use nuclear warheads to try and lure the Mutos into the water and then, blast the hell out of them. The scientists are all like, are you kidding? This is a stupid idea. Ford makes it back to the United States, and he winds up...
He was already in the United States. He makes it back to the mainland.
Yeah, to the mainland, yeah. He joins up with the team that's supposed to be taking these warheads via train, but while they're going along at night, trying to send these warheads via train, now these creatures can send out a pulse that destroys anything electronic.
It's called an EMP. People know what it is. Electromagnetic pulse. That kind of thing could wreck, everything right there in a general area, or enough to set off.
Yeah.
They usually do set one off in the upper atmosphere before a nuclear weapon is used.
Mm-hmm.
Because that destroys current TV, radio, and everything else.
Yeah, so let's remember these things can do this naturally. And did I mention the females? The male's pretty big, the female's even bigger. So the radius of this pulse thing can be pretty damn wide. The female Muto winds up attacking the train and winds up eating most of the warheads. Yuck. The one warhead that's left is taken to San Francisco along with Ford, and it winds up being activated, but Godzilla shows up and swims under the Golden Gate Bridge while he's being shot at by the military. Thank you so much. But the male Muto winds up grabbing the warhead and takes it to the female, who has created a nest for herself in the Chinatown area of San Francisco.
I want to take exception to that. The military is not shooting at Godzilla. They are warned ahead of time by Serizawa that he is coming. Serizawa is convinced he is here to stop the Mutos.
Right.
And what does happen is accidental.
They're still shooting at him, and it's still pissing me off.
But it was accidental, and they stopped.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, don't look for making the military a scapegoat here when they were trying to help. Anyway.
I would like to bring up that Godzilla...
Especially on when we're taping this, so go ahead.
I know, but Godzilla... I would like to bring up Godzilla goes under the bridge instead of going through it, which shows that this is an intelligent, thinking creature that's being shot at. So... The thing is, as we mentioned, the female Muto has built a nest. And the reason she has built a nest is because she is laying eggs.
Lots of eggs.
Lots of eggs. Whole lot of eggs. And like I mentioned, one of the other shows we did earlier this week, anybody who tells you all babies are cute, that is a lie. Because we see the baby Mutos like wiggling around in these eggs that look like they're slightly larger than basketballs, and they're not cute. I'm sorry, they're not cute. So, Godzilla winds up fighting both of the Mutos, And Ford and a bunch of other military guys who are really brave people, they're part of a strike team, and they wind up going into San Francisco by jumping out of a plane at night using flares to guide them, which is a really cool scene. And they need to find the warhead and disarm it. So the thing is, they can't get to the timer, and they get the warhead on a boat to send it out to sea. Ford winds up staying behind long enough to douse the Muto nest in gasoline and lights it on fire and blows the hell out of it and, destroys all the eggs. Which is actually a really sad scene, because when the female Muto realizes what happens, she is wailing in. I would actually call that pain. I would actually refer to that as actual emotional pain.
Yeah.
And
she's really pissed too.
Yeah, it's actual emotional pain, which translates into soul shredding rage.
Gonna kill you
really, really quickly. And the whole attack on the nest winds up being the big enough distraction for Godzilla to mount a offense against both the Mutos, killing both of the Mutos, including one shot where he kill. Is it the male?
You're getting ahead of things. They got to get that timer out. They're going to get the bomb out into San Francisco Harbor, away from people, so that when it blows up, it will destroy as little as possible.
Okay,
Problem is the male senses it happening and follows it. Mm-hmm. Ford has now rejoined his people. Yeah. Now,
Godzilla winds up being able to, kills one of the Mutos by opening its mouth and blasting fire down into its open mouth, which is frigging awesome. I'm sorry, it is one of the most...
The cheer that went up from the audience was amazing.
Oh, yeah, I was definitely... And I think mine was the loudest. So, during all this, we also have to bring up that his wife and kid have been separated. The little boy's okay. He's with, a bunch of other kids that have been taken out of the city. And the wife winds up being... she's in an underground...
She's in one of the BART shelters.
Yeah. But
she's standing for Bay Area Rapid Transit. So
yeah. But so they're both safe. So
she's a nurse,
but he doesn't know that.
To deal with all this stuff.
Ford doesn't know that. Yeah. Ford manages to get the boat out into the ocean before falling. He's completely exhausted and been through hell, and blacks out. Now by this point, Godzilla has expended as much energy as anybody could possibly ask for someone to expend, and has collapsed still in San Francisco. Ford winds up being airlifted off of the boat by a chopper, and then manages to get away before the missile explodes. And he winds up at a football stadium. I don't know which. Is it a football stadium or a baseball stadium?
Probably the baseball stadium.
Yeah,
the giant stadium.
Which is being used as a place where people can get medical attention and also be reunited with their families and stuff like that. So he winds up finding his wife and child, and they're both okay. So it's daytime now, and the Mutos are dead. The crisis is over, except for the fact that there's this big, enormous monster lying in the middle of San Francisco, which may or may not be dead. And by this point in the movie, yes, I am crying. And people start getting closer to Godzilla's body, and all of a sudden, his eyes slowly open up. And people are all kind of like, oh no, what's going to happen? Is he going to attack? And all this stuff. And Godzilla just gets up slowly. I mean, he's not feeling so hot. No. I mean, after everything he's been through, you can't blame him. But before he heads back out into the ocean, he throws his head back and gives one enormous roar as we see people looking on. Some people are grateful. Some people are too stunned to say anything. And
some people are cheering.
And some people are cheering. I would have been cheering. I would have been
we'll get into that.
Cheering so hard my voice would have exploded. And we see Godzilla from the point of view of people watching videos, televisions and stuff like that. And underneath it says, they're calling him King of the Monsters, Savior, Savior of our city, ? And Godzilla just heads into the water, and we see him just sinking lower and lower in the water until all we can see are the spikes sticking out of the water, and then they're just gone.
Yeah.
And so is he. Leaving the world to realize we are not alone here, and we need to expect the unexpected from now on.
Yep. As we said, the movie starred Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ken Watanabe, Bryan Cranston, Elizabeth Olsen, Juliette Binoche, Sally Hawkins, David Strathairn. T.J. Storm was the actor inside the mocap for Godzilla, and there were a lot of other young actors out there who had done various parts in this. The weird part about this film, I want to bring up a couple of things about this. Number one, the film was well received, and everybody that saw it, we've watched it at least a dozen times on cable and on DVD since it came out. It's a great film. It was very weird, as we've said before, to watch Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen play husband and wife just 6 months after they played brother and sister in Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yes.
But
this film had a different twist.
At least we saw this one coming. But anyway.
Well, that and Aaron Taylor Johnson actually made it to the end of this movie.
Bite me. Anyway.
Oops.
This movie does what Kim absolutely cannot stand with Godzilla, and yet this one she has no problem with.
What do you mean?
Godzilla is the the savior of humanity. He is here to protect humanity.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Serizawa basically comes right out and says it. He's here to make sure that the world stays safe for everybody.
I don't think that's what he says. He's saying that Godzilla is the defender of the planet.
Okay, fine.
Defender of the planet? Hold up. Yeah, prairie chickens are on the planet too. Would you consider Godzilla defender of the prairie chicken? I'm sorry. Being a defender of humanity and defender of planet Earth are two entirely different things.
Not in this universe.
I think Godzilla tolerates humans in this universe.
We get a shot of him and Ford looking straight at each other in this film. And there's no animosity from Godzilla at all toward this military man who has just, risked his life to destroy the Muto nest in San Francisco. And obviously, there's a connection there. Godzilla does have a connection with the human race in these films. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know.
We'll see if that comes true later on.
My thing is that this film obviously shows Godzilla is not some big stupid brute.
Right.
Which I really liked.
Right. It gives him, it makes him, again, not so much a weapon as it is an overseer.
I think...
Which is how Serizawa approaches him. By the way, for those of you who do remember the 1954 film, there has not been a definitive connection made between Ken Watanabe's Serizawa and the Serizawa who created the oxygen destroyer in the original film.
No.
If you look, over a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting here researching this furiously to see if they connected it in any way, and they didn't, other than the surname.
Other than the name, yeah.
So
well, we knew
that may happen in the new movie. We don't know.
Well, we knew Serizawa wasn't married because he didn't marry Emiko before he died.
Right.
So it's possible that maybe Serizawa was his uncle or something.
Well, no,
we
mentioned his father's name in all the bios, so somewhere there may be a relation, but they haven't yet confirmed it. So, in any case, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it is.
And they also have more information on Monarch as well. Monarch, if you haven't figured it out, means...
What do you mean?
What is a monarch?
It's a butterfly. Well, and it's also another way to say ruler.
It's named for moth.
Yeah.
They're aware of Mothra at that point too, although they don't say it, but it becomes
they don't say
evident.
it, but there is an after credit scene in Kong Skull Island,
right? Which was 4 decades before this, and obviously at this time they're well aware of the titans that will appear on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Well, we knew that it was going to be either amazing or suck when it came out, and I was like, this is going to be amazing. And we walked out of this movie, and I was 5 inches off the ground, floating on air. I was so excited.
You were hoping it was not going to be 1996 all over again, and it wasn't.
It was not at all.
It was very much worth it. Mm-hmm. And of course, I would have been a big fan anyway, just because Aaron Taylor Johnson is in it. I am a huge fan of his, and it's just like, I mean, it's like...
You have to wonder if it would have been a different film if the person who they originally offered it to had taken the role.
Who?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. They had originally offered the part of Ford to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he turned it down.
We should also mention that the younger version of Ford in the opening sequences is played by PNR Rising Star alum C.J. Adams, who starred in the
Odd Life of Timothy Green.
Odd Life of Timothy Green.
Yep.
So it definitely...
Which is, if you've never seen, you really should, because it's a great movie.
Anyway, we're running way long with this. I'm going to cut this off, and we're tomorrow going to hit the most recent Godzilla film before the movie coming out Friday. We weren't going to do it, but we realized we have an extra day to fill, so we're going to do it. 2015? 16's Toho Reawakening, Shin Godzilla, which we also saw at the theater, and we will talk about that tomorrow. Want to remind you that this show right here is courtesy of eCinemaOne, Subject Cinema, and Kim's patron-only show, Kaiju Corner, every 2 weeks or so on Patreon. So please join us on Patreon. $5 a month or more gets you her show and 2 other great shows. Patreon.com/PNRNetworks. Until tomorrow, when we hit more of the Big G Tokyo Town StompDown, I'm TC Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown.
One movie left.
So excited!
You've been listening to the Big G Tokyo Town StompDown from Subject Cinema, Kaiju Corner, and eCinemaOne.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.
PNR.